Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on the last session in room 9 for today. The topic is collaborating on Business Central open source platform, and it will be brought by you by Jesper Schulz-Wedde and Maria Zhelezova. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's the title, Collaborating on Business Central's open source platform. I'm Jesper Schulz-Wedde, and I'm the engineering manager on a small team called Application Foundation. Amongst others, my team is working on the system application. And as you may or may not know, the system application is the first app that we've actually fully open sourced, and hence it's also my duty to drive our open source story, which is why I'm here today to present the latest and greatest news for you. And with me I have Maria.
Hi everybody, my name is Maria Zhelezova, and I work on Jesper's team on making the system application perfect for you, and also working on the infrastructure we have right now on GitHub.
Alrighty, let's jump right into it then. So the agenda for today is, why is open source a good idea? I'm going to spend 10 minutes on diving into that. Then we're going to look at what to contribute and how does universal code relate to that.
After that, I'm going to give you a technical preview on how to actually contribute to our repository on GitHub, and also an overview of what is the current status with our continuous integration, with also a few reasons on why we decided to go on GitHub.
Yeah, and then we're going to take a look into the crystal ball and see what's next. That's maybe the most exciting part of this session. And then maybe round out the session with what's in it for you, like other incentives for you to join our collaboration model. I don't think that we'll have time for Q&A, but maybe at the end of both sessions, if there's time left, then we can take some questions. All right, so let's dive right into it. Why does having a contribution model for Business Central make sense in the first place? What are we hoping to improve? Well, we would like to accelerate product growth. I'll talk into that in a minute. We would like to improve product quality and auditability. Also, we would like to enhance extensibility, customizability, and compatibility. Then we hope to further foster collaboration between all of us. And last but certainly not least, we hope to further develop this already absolutely amazing community. So let's start with product growth, or more specifically, the market opportunity ahead of us. So the market share of Business Central has plenty of room for growth. This is not the presentation for me to go into exactly like how much of a market we have in front of us, but according to a recent IDC study, the totally addressable market for SMB is somewhere around the area of $90 billion US. So, spoiler alert, Business Central isn't quite there yet. There's plenty of opportunity to go around. We've merely just started yet. So we've planted the first seeds to become a real cloud success story. Oh, now my microphone.
Oh boy.
Fell off.
Assistance.
All right. I hope that works. Yeah, still hear me, right? Yeah. So we've planted the first seeds to become a true success story, but to conquer this entire market, it takes more than what the Business Central team can do by itself. It takes the community to further accelerate this growth. There's plenty of opportunity to go around for everyone, so together we can make sure that this becomes the #1 choice for the SMB market, the #1 business application choice. So now let's take a look at our competition. Have you ever heard of the phrase, you snooze, you lose? Well, the same is also true for the SMB market. The SMB market is highly lucrative, as I just stated. There's a lot of money to be had, and it's hence just a matter of time before other of the big players are going to take an attempt at getting their foot into this market. And while these giants sleep and dream about how lucrative of a market this is, it is very likely that when they wake up, like that, then they will start competing from below. They are going to enter the ERP space from the SMB market. By getting ahead of the game already and by collaborating and accelerating our growth, we can eliminate potential vacuums in the market where they could get a foothold. So let's get ahead of the game. So how do we get ahead of the game? Well, most importantly, we need to stop reinventing the wheel. And we should focus on true innovation and market differentiators instead. So the technology market has never moved any faster than it does right now. I think you can all feel that out there. and we need to beat its pace. And as you probably also all know, developer resources are sparse these days. There's simply too much going on. It's really, really hard to get your hands on talent these days. So regardless of how many of our talented developers we throw at this product, there's always going to be that extra customer wish, this extra one thing that you guys need to build the best possible verticals. So we will never have enough resources to fund everything. And hence, we need to start collaborating on commodities and stop competing at them. We need to stop, fighting ourselves, and instead start reusing to a much higher degree than we are doing today. So one thing is the business application platform growth, but this is just as much about your growth. So if you have an idea that you want to realize, and there's something missing in the product platform for you to build that idea, or it is something that you think should be part of the product, previously you could log an idea and hope for Microsoft to pick it up, and that might take a couple of years if you're unlucky. So, why not just not wait for Microsoft and instead, seize the opportunity yourself and make the change yourself? It'll be much, much, much faster. So the new model that we're having here is bidirectional. You have the development of the product platform just as much in your own hands now as previously we had it. So seize that opportunity. But enough about product growth. I guess you get the picture by now. There are other benefits of open sourcing your code. And one of them is based on Linus's law, which is given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. What that means is that open source code is visible to everyone. The more eyes you have on the code, the better the quality is going to be. It's really just as simple as that. And having other developers reviewing your code can only benefit the quality of your code. And you will have will spend less time fixing product defects that have been released, which, as you know, is rather expensive. So higher quality in the beginning, less struggle in the end. Also, if you want to know for sure whether the code that you are running is running on a secure platform, what better way is there than to have the source code openly available? You can actually see what's happening in the engine room. So, yeah, that was product quality and auditability, also benefiting. Then there is extensibility, customizability, and compatibility. If you design software from the very beginning with extensibility in mind, then it just gets a better product. You'll build a much stronger, extensible foundation from the get-go, rather than if you just build it, without thinking about extensibility. And then once you start building, other partners might chip in, and they might either through code reviews or actively in your pull request start collaborating with you. And in the end, you will have just the better product that suits more partners' needs than just your own. And it would just be much better product in the end. But open source is more than just about technology and code. It is very much about persons too. And it's about ideas and collaborating on ideas, sharing ideas. It's about learning. It's really about collaboration. So you never know who has the next great, fantastic idea. So when you participate in open source, you are guaranteed to learn, and you're guaranteed to benefit from that as well. Or as Satya says it, always keep learning. You stop doing useful things if you don't learn. So problems are getting more and more complex. We can't possibly conquer them all by ourselves, but through collaboration, we can get there. And let's not forget our great community. This is my absolute favorite. I mean, I just simply completely adore and love this community. We have one of the strongest communities already out there in the ERP market, I think maybe generally. There's nothing quite like this community. And open source is known to be a force multiplier. So by introducing open source into this already strong community, I mean, there's no telling what we can achieve together. I think the sky is the limit here. So that's why I usually say, together we win. Together we can really get ahead of the game. And that's why I think, open source is extremely important here. So to wrap it up, these were the 5 things that I was hoping that open source can help us with. So let's take a look at universal code and how that relates to the open source story. So what universal code in essence means is that the days of code customizations truly are over, right? I mean, they have been over for the cloud already for a while, but this is just really the end of that. There is no more replacing internals or like with your own solution. There's no more customization. From now on, it's extensions only. And the target of these extensions must be cloud, right? And what that means, I guess you all know, and I have experience in the hard way. There's no more .NET Interop, there's no more local file system, all these things. We don't need to get into that. There have been plenty of sessions around that already. So if you are stuck with some code, that you usually just went in the base application or somewhere else on the system application, and you normally would have changed, now you cannot do that anymore. But through this contribution model, now you can get all these paper cuts in your little fix boxes, and you can, make sure that the platform actually has these to the benefit of everyone. But there are, of course, other things that that makes sense to contribute to. It's not just the things for universal code. There's, for instance, commodity functionality. This is the thing that every customer expects to be in the product. I really think we need to stop competing on these. There is no need to have 15 different solutions for the same problem that all these 15 partners need to maintain. Why not work on one and then get over with that? Then there is the core horizontal functionality. Those are the building blocks that you guys need to build fantastic software. And there is no point in us competing on these either. I mean, why not, if you need some building block, contribute it, have it, put it in the machine room, make it available for everyone, and then maybe the others can do other things that will benefit you. So it will be a give and take here. Then there are things that you simply can't or don't want to monetize. It's like these small paper cuts that you can't really invoice or, just these small things, grunt work really. Maybe stuff that you usually fix as PTEs or something. Then there are bug fixes, the non-critical bug fixes, so things that just maybe annoy you that you found, and that you can't make a support case for it because it's not important enough, or you don't want to because it takes so much time. Stuff like that is also would be very nice to contribute. And then, of course, there are all the other small adjustments like extensibility requests, events, and stuff. Whatever you need to turn something that is currently maybe not extensible to your liking, make it extensible so that you can build on top of that. So here are a few examples from the past few years, like good examples of great contributions. There's, for instance, the integration to Azure Blob Storage, which entered the product, I think, last release. Then we actually have two ongoing ones, which are rather exciting. There's the integration to Azure Queue Storage and the integration to SharePoint. Those we hope to release in the very near future, again, to the benefit of you all. And a couple of years back, we introduced the barcode provider. Again, why should everyone have their own barcode provider? It's enough if one partner makes the effort and then the rest can contribute to that. So where's that going to leave us? Well, it will allow you to build tall verticals on an even stronger foundation, a foundation that is really solid and that has everything that you need to go all the way and make fantastic products. And also it will allow you to a higher degree to focus on the last mile rather than always having to look at the entire stack of the application platform. So you can, that's basically what the benefit is. So that was it for the why and the what. And now Maria is going to talk a little bit about the how to contribute.
Thank you, Jesper. I really hope he managed to convince you to contribute. And we're going to have a short overview on actually how to do it. And we're going to start with the requirements. So what exactly you need in order to be able to contribute. First and foremost, you need a GitHub account. This is a contribution on GitHub, and GitHub is the place where open source project live. Is, I think, by far the best platform for open source project. Microsoft is pushing for having projects on GitHub, and I think this is just the best place for code, for the code base for products that are targeting SMB like Business Central. Next, you need a basic understanding of Git. Actually, nowadays, there are a lot of layers on top of Git that kind of hide the complexity. But generally, it's nice to be at least aware of branching, merging, how commits happen, how history is tracked, etc. Next, of course, you need a development environment. This is our favorite Visual Studio Code, which is, again, by the way, an open source project on GitHub. And of course, this is coupled with the AO language extension. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that you also need a basic understanding of Docker. But don't worry, I know Docker is scary. But you really need the basics. You just pretty much install it and have it run. I think Freddy builds amazing features that actually pretty much cover the complexities around Docker. Next, I actually overlined a couple of steps that are quite valuable, that these are the steps that you need to take if you want to contribute to any GitHub repository. This is not specific to our repository. And first step, of course, is to find the GitHub repository on GitHub. This is usually github.com/organization/the name. Next, you want to fork it. Forking a repository means that you pretty much copy it under your own account. And this is pretty much needed because I think all of the open source projects I know don't allow direct cloning because it's going to get messy with branches and everything. And also, I think there are some security concerns for sure as well. Last, you need to clone the repository. That means take the code that's out there on GitHub and put it on your local machine so that it's available for development. Here, I think I prepared a short video on how you actually can do that. So let me play that. Actually, let me just mention that this is the GitHub account. This is how GitHub looks, for those of you who are not familiar. This is the GitHub account of a user that is not connected to Microsoft or Business Central in any way. It's just a random email that I created, and with that email, I created a GitHub account. And this is how you actually do the 3 steps I just outlined. So first, as I mentioned, you need to navigate to the repository. In this case, it's AO App Extensions. Here you can see how it looks. It's from Microsoft. You see the file structure. It's always nice to start it. And forking is as simple as clicking a button. Here you'll be prompted to verify some information. You can actually give it a different name in your own account. And then forking it is, again, just clicking a button. As you can see, the file structure is the same. This is the same repository. You can see the original one. And then cloning it is, again, as easy. For this particular demo, I use the GitHub CLI, but there are other options. GitHub CLI is something, I think it's a new feature. I haven't tried it before, but it's fairly simple to use. And it's one of the features you might like if you are not very familiar with Git. So that was that video, but I think I have prepared another one. And this video is about how you clone the repository. So this is Visual Studio Code. You may not recognize it because I use the sword light color theme. Please don't judge. This is how I work. And here I have opened a terminal window. And in that terminal, let me just play the video. You only need a few commands. First and foremost, of course, you need to authenticate with GitHub CLI. It's very simple, just a command, and it's just prompting your code. And I don't do it in the video because I had done it before. But then cloning the repository is just running the command that you copied from GitHub. Now, after that, you can see that the files are actually being fetched. Of course, now it's a good time to mention that you need to have the AO language VS Code extension installed to be able to work on that. And here you can see the files being downloaded. And in a few seconds, you actually have the GitHub repository on your machine ready to develop on. Here we actually open the workspace that contains the system application test, and test libraries, I think with some other modules. Just pretty much this is the system application layer that we are talking about here. Next, I think I'm going to use that one. Outlined a few steps that you need in order to be able to contribute to our repository. Like these are specific steps that you need if you want to add code there. First, you need to set up a local development environment. This is anyway different for any repository. Like every repository has some requirements. You need to have certain versions, etc. Second, you need to add, deploy, and test your changes. This is actually not news for you. I hope this is how you develop generally. And then last, you need to push your changes and create a pull request to our original GitHub repository. Here, I think I prepared another video that's actually later on. But first, setting up the local development environment. We use AOGo, so actually setting up is as easy as running a script that Freddy provided. And it's pretty much doing everything for you. You just run it, and you have everything up and running. So if you run it in VS Code, in the terminal that I showed you in the previous video, you would see stuff like pulling generic image, creating container. Don't be scared. This is just AOGo taking care of everything you need under the hood to be able to develop. If you have at the Docker Container Explorer, you're going to see the Business Central server running there. Again, you don't have to maintain anything, you just have to have it running, pretty much. And now is the video I was telling you about. So this is the video where how you make some changes and create pull requests on GitHub. And to your surprise, we're actually going to stay in the same window for the whole thing. So let me give some context. This is again Visual Studio. Here we have opened a workspace that contains the system application, and here we want to introduce a small fix. This is actually because we noticed there is a warning that says that internals are apparently not allowed for procedures in interfaces, which actually does make sense, right? So let's go ahead and remove these. We can quickly see the changes, and verify that these are the changes that we want. Next, we notice that we work on the main branch, which is never a good idea, so we create a new branch that we're going to call fix warning, if I remember correctly. Now everything looks all right, and we're going to add the file, write a commit message. Writing commit messages is very important. I mean, good commit messages. I really struggled with not making a typo here. And then once the change is committed, we're prompted to publish the branch. This is, again, just clicking a button. And I actually have an extension, GitHub pull request and issues installed. This is the name of the extension that actually very conveniently prompts you to create a pull request. And then here on the right, I'm just going to pause for a second. Here on the right, you can see how this is like the original branch. This is the repo that is under the account that has nothing to do with Microsoft. This is the branch name, and this is the target repository, which is the original Microsoft repository, which we are making a pull request directly to the main branch. Then again, the title and the descriptions are something like that's actually something that we're going to request from you to enter, because this one is like very simple, but ideally we want to have bigger pull requests. But small fixes are also welcome. Again, now this is how we create. Again, it was just like a click of a button. And here we see an overview of the pull request. Here you might notice that I actually forgot to change the GitHub user, but I can assure you, like the branch is created and the pull request is created from a user that has nothing to do with Microsoft. So it's not like I had some extra rights. So this is actually how the pull request looks on GitHub right now, by the way. If you go on GitHub, on our repository, this is the pull request. And as you can see, I actually even added the comment. But more importantly, here you're going to see this one workflow awaiting approval. And this is because the CI that we implemented actually requires manual approval by someone from the current owners, pretty much someone from Microsoft. This is some security stuff that we need to take into account. And then after that, once the CI is completed, then the PR is ready to be merged. Next, I think I want to talk about the current status of the continuous integration. So as I already told you, we have almost full uptake of AO Go. Right now, it's actually only available for the modules folder. But I think we're probably going to expand that. And also, I want to emphasize that AO Go is open source. I don't know how many of you attended the Freddy's workshop. I don't know if you had a session about AO Go. But we use it, and it's out there. So our own infrastructure is currently out there. We also have the CI running for every pull request. It's actually for every push to a pull request. And it looks like that. It just builds, have some tasks. It builds the app, builds the tests, runs some validations. And that's pretty much it. Next one. I think I wanted to mention some area for improvements, because sometimes it's just not enough to have, your code compiled, built, or tested. We also want to invest in the code cop engine and its rule. Because if we're going to develop together, we need to obey the same rules. I mean, and it's not us who should tell you, obey our rules, or you cannot accept your code. I really hope this could be a conversation. Next, we want to have a good test coverage. As code that's not tested, that's it's unlikely to be uptaken. We also want to introduce improvements to the test framework, because we know maybe you know as well that testing in AO is quite painful, especially when it comes to mocking, when you have external dependencies. So we really want to improve that as well. We also want to improve performance regression tests, because this is quite valuable for our SaaS customers. So whenever you build something, if you run it locally, even if there is a small regression in terms of performance, locally this is multiplied by I don't know how much on the cloud. So it really matters that we don't introduce any performance regressions. We also want to include breaking changes checks, which is we have in our internal system, but they're not implemented right now with AOGO. And lastly, we want to have a better PR review process. We want to ensure that enough eyes have been on the pull request. We want to ensure that potential users of this code, whether it's an API or whatever, are actually fine with that usage. We want to engage people in the code review process, right? It's not like even if we have a pull request open, that doesn't mean that this code is perfect, right? So it's always valuable to have a good code review. And of course, something that I think bugs the spot a little bit for me on the keynote, but we want to introduce a continuous deployment, continuous delivery on our GitHub apps, the one from the system application as a starter. We are working on, this is actually part of AOGO, but we're working on actually making it true. So what that means for you is that whenever your PR is checked in, then some pipeline triggers, and ideally within a few hours, your code actually reaches active tenants somewhere there, right? On SaaS, of course, we're talking about that. And then just to, of course, this is not ready. We're working on that one. I also wanted to mention a few things of why we chose GitHub. Because to be honest, it was a kind of a semi-automatic process where you could just take pull requests from GitHub, put them in our internal repository, run our internal pipelines, and that's kind of worked for a while. Not very scalable, but still it's not the worst process. And the reasons we actually chose to go there, to push for open source, is because we really want to close the development gap between the Microsoft team and the partner channel. We want you to make sure that whatever we build, you can build it too. There is no difference in the infrastructure. Everything is out there. I mean, AOGO is out there, our code will be out there, and it's going to be like the true source of truth. We also wanted to foster a better collaborative platform for the AO development community, meaning that we wanted to build better features together. We believe that if we have your opinion early in advance on whatever we're building, then this feature, whatever it is, it would be in its best shaped when it's shipped. And of course, it's all about collaboration on GitHub anyway. So I just wanted to sum up with what's going to happen. So we want to strengthen our open source community. We want to strengthen our open source infrastructure. And of course, we want to continue our road towards true open source. Now, back to Jesper on the topic you've probably been waiting for and the reason you joined this session today.
Yes, thank you, Maria. Personally, I cannot wait for us to move truly out to GitHub with our system application, that also the Microsoft team is going to work on equal terms with you guys. We can collaborate on things. I'm really excited about that. But in recent discussions, whenever we spoke about, could you contribute to the system application, the feedback has continuously been, well, the thing that we really want to work on is the base application. That's where, our value lies. So that's the feedback that we've received. And for many years, we've been struggling a little to wrap our mind around, how do we do that? How do we address that? But now I've decided, let's just jump right into it. Let's see if we can do this together. We are going to open source the base application. But there are a few risks with that, right? Because the base application is an entirely different beast to tackle than the very well-structured system application. So let me just very quickly touch upon some of these risks that we need to mitigate. And I'm sorry if I'm constantly turning around, but it's because our monitor is dying here in front of me, so I can't really see anything. So some of the risk is, different partners have different verticals, and hence they have different solutions to problems. And we want to build a platform, right, that suits everyone. We don't want to build a customer solution. Hence, we need to make sure that these pull requests that are coming in, that they are actually of a nature, of a format how we want it. Then very often, you can see that today, if you go through the list of issues on GitHub, there's a lack of context to probably understand what the solution or what the proposed solution is. Very often it's like, I need an event right here, but there's no why and there's nothing for us to understand it. So we need to make sure that we somehow build into the process that we have a common understanding of the issue that you would like to address when you're going and change the base application. Then there's also a little bit of lack of coordination and collaboration still. Very often today, at least that's what we see in the system application, is that one partner makes a pull request, and then it is more or less up to Microsoft to do the code review, and that does not really scale. So we do want multiple developers from maybe different partners to collaborate on things. We want the community to do reviewing as well, because only then will we get the full benefit of the open source story. Then also, well, that's kind of what I just mentioned as well. Like we have a high inflow of pull requests, then you will also need high contribution and code reviews. So that's something that we need to build. Then also something that might be a challenge for developers who the first time contribute to the base application is actually to realize how complex of an application that one is. Even with a single line of code change, multiple things can go wrong. So very often, changing that line of code is the thing that takes the least time. We've got localizations that can fail. We've got a huge test suite that will fail. We've got code rules that you can, violate. So there's actually a whole lot of things that need to be done. And if there's one thing that a lot of developers don't have, it's patience. So this is also something that needs to be tackled. Then we have the missing infrastructural support. Base application is much, much larger, so we need much more power. But Maria is working on that, and I'm absolutely positive that she's going to pull that one off. So I hope that we got that one checked off. And then, of course, there are many more aspects to open source than just the coding part. When you've developed a feature and you've contributed it, it also needs to be documented properly. It needs to, getting started help, all these things that really, make a product great. Obviously, features contributed through open source also need to have all of these bells and whistles. So, just a second. So how do we mitigate those risks? Well, we're going to make a controlled contribution model, is what I call it. As we need to learn from experience, we'll start with a pilot, where select members of the community, and those select members can very well be all of you, take this up take it for a spin. And this pilot is actually ready to take off. So let's try before we buy. And we are starting with that in the coming weeks. So how does that work? Well, I've made a new repository for us. And as you will see, it very much looks like the one that we had before, the AL app extensions repository. We've got the no, this one is not working. We've got the modules folder with the system application. We've got all our W1 apps. And then we've got the new folder, which is the layers W1 folder. And in that folder, you will find the base application. Notice that we will start only with W1. There will be no local base application versions. And that is just to get started somewhere, not to overcomplicate matters from the beginning. But other than that, you've got the full suite. You've got all the tests. You've got everything you need to get going on contributions for the base application. So the first thing that you need to do, as I said, because it's a private repository for now, because we need to be able to control these aspects. So the first thing you need to do is to get access. So in the end, you'll get my contact details, but you can reach me on Yammer, Twitter, or whatever, and say like, hey, I would like to be part of this, and I just will quickly make sure that you understand the rules of the game, and that we align our expectations, because this is a pilot. Things can go wrong, things can change, but we'll work that out together. And then we get going. So it all starts with an issue. Before any work can be begun, and GitHub issue must be created. And it must be approved to become an open source project. Yeah, for bugs, so it all starts with this idea. Let's take the root of a bug. Let's say you found a little code defect that you would like to fix. Then what you need to do is to go onto GitHub and click the button New Issue. I'm going to show you how in a minute. And then that's going to create an issue to start off. You might also have a larger contribution. Those who would like to control in a little bit different way, you already know BC ideas. There are already a ton of ideas out there. And right now, a lot of you are just waiting for Microsoft to pick them up. But again, we have a little bit, we have many things to do, so not always can we prioritize these ideas. So now you can actually select these ideas yourself and say, like, hey, I would like to contribute this idea, rather than waiting for Microsoft to do it. Then a product manager is going to look at this BC idea. It's going to tag it as a contribution candidate. That's then going to spawn off a Yammer discussion where we can discuss design. And it's also going to create an issue in GitHub that you then can further use to link your pull request against. So let me just quickly show you how that works. My mic is falling off again. So here are the issues. So you click on New Issue, and there are actually 3 options in here. The bottom one, report a security vulnerability. You will actually see the policy that this is not the way to do that. You'll get instructed if you find a security issue how to do that. Then you can click on feature request, that you want to suggest a feature. Then I've made a little template. This is not the way, because as we said, you need to go through BC ideas to do that. And then we will review the idea and we will approve it, and it will then turn into an issue through that loop. Also, this entire process is, of course, documented in the repository, so you can read all of what I'm saying here if you should forget. So yeah, that was a feature, but let's go back. Let's say you just found a small product defect, or we want to address something that is not worthy of an idea. Then you just click, you get started. It's important to notice here that you should only create issues that you intend to fix yourself. This is not another channel to report customer defects or product defects reported by customers. This is not another way to tell Microsoft what to do. This is a way for you to say what you intend to do, which is a little bit unlike other open source projects. But then there's a template, where we ask you to describe the problem, where we ask you for repro steps so that we can follow along. What is the expected behavior? Maybe you have some screenshots that you like to add, and maybe you have some additional context. So, yeah, that was that. Then the next thing is you need to design your issue and get approval to start on the pull request. So before, as I said, we need to establish that we know the goal and have a common understanding of the goal. We need to have an understanding of the requirements. And ideally also other interested parties need to have a chance to find each other, to collaborate on this. And that is because, again, software development is so much more than just coding. Without proper architecture and design, we cannot possibly create good solutions which perform well. So analysis and design need to happen before we start implementation. So for smaller issues, I envision that we can just have the discussion in the issue, and then at some point we can move the issue into the ready for implementation state. For larger ideas, I think Yammer is a good way to discuss and to find each other. And then when we think, this is good, then we can get started on that. This is just to show you very quickly, this is the Kanban board that we're using to track the status of the individual issues. So in the beginning, it starts in needs triage. If we then say, well, this issue makes sense, then it gets into issue approved. Then we discuss design. Then we put it in ready for implementation. And now you can create a pull request linked to that issue. So yeah, then comes the implementation phase. So when it's deemed ready, you can actually start to code. And we're doing this, of course, to prevent a flood of pull requests which aren't in a ready state. Because there's nothing more discouraging than you spending time on creating code and writing it all and then making a pull request, and then the next thing you know is Microsoft says, no, this is not platform functionality, we will not accept it. So that's why we're doing all these other things. So rejections of PR should rarely happen with this process, I hope. And how are we going to enforce this? Well, if you create an idea, if you create a pull request but don't link it to an idea, we're going to shut down that PR again until you have an approved idea. So you're probably only going to do that once, and then you will remember. Then comes another very, very important aspect, and that's the learning part, right? We need to review the code together. I hope it will not just be Microsoft doing the review, but that the entire community engages with that, especially in the areas where they are knowledgeable. So yeah, I mean, code quality is known to be the #1 thing to do in order to push code quality upstream, right? The more eyes you have on the code, the better. We just touched upon that earlier. And then you will need a formal sign-off on the PR before deployment can begin. Yeah, so how are we going to do that? We're going to require a certain number of sign-offs, and then we're good to go. Do bear in mind that this is an iterative process. So if you receive, code comments like, ooh, there's a security issue here or whatever, then of course you need to return to your code and again, make a fix, and again get through all the CI gates, and then at some point you'll get the sign-off. And then when the CI process has succeeded and the PR has been approved, well, then these changes can get deployed into production. And that's why we're doing this in the first place. This is really what we're hoping for to happen. A lot of great contributions. So initially, this is going to be a manual process where my team takes your PR after it has passed all of the CI stuff, and then we manually port it into the latest release branch, and it will then release with the next minor. But given time, maybe in a couple of years, who knows, maybe the base application will be able to follow the system applications example and be truly fully open sourced. Again, the advantage then being that even the Microsoft team, when we do code reviews, everything is going to be in the open. If we develop features, you will be able to also early see what we're up to. You'll be able to early provide feedback, and we can all develop these features together. So that's, of course, the dream. But it's going to take a little longer time than probably a couple of years, is my hope. So what's in it for you? Other than being part of a vibrant community and have the opportunity to learn a great deal, there are other incentives for you to contribute. So we do realize that very often, like when I've spoken to you guys, very often you would like to contribute, but then maybe the company has some policies that prevent you from contributing, or they say like, hey, this is not really billable, and should we do it? So there's a little bit of misalignment there sometimes. I mean, I think some companies need to see the light before they'll actually fully jump on this. So what we're trying to do is to give you a few more tangible incentives, which might help you, go the extra mile. So, #1, the partner with the most valuable contribution for version 21 gets a short video spot in the next direction Microsoft keynote and receives a absolutely stunning crystal.
Oh.
So, you can be upstage there on this even larger screen than this one, and you'll be able to tell the entire world about your great contribution. That should help a little. Then the developer involved in the most valuable contributions gets ticket to the Next Directions conference. So that could be you. We're going to announce the winner at this year's Directions 2022 in Hamburg, and then you will get a ticket for the 2023 EMEA Directions. So that might also, persuade you to go the extra mile. Then, of course, we also want to, celebrate the people that do the code reviews and that just contribute in other ways than creating pull requests. So we're going to create some Business Central swag. It's going to be some T-shirts or some mugs or some pens or something that the developers with the most pull requests or the most engagement, we could say, will receive. And yes, I think this one is very, very important. Being an active member of the open source community is a path towards becoming a Microsoft MVP. And that is not just for Business Central, that is for Microsoft flat out. We do recognize contributions. They do count towards your MVP status. So this is a way to get recognition. It's a way to get known out there. It's a way to become an MVP if that is one of your goals. And yes, we're going to look into badges. GitHub has just created a badge system that we might tap into. Then there are Credly badges, and we're still designing the badge story around it, But when you start, I don't know, we're going to have a collection of badges that you can achieve just to make things a little bit more fun. And we're going to start making a lot more noise around these pull requests. So I'm going to be tweeting about it, or we are going to be tweeting about it. We're going to be, announcing it on Yammer. It's going to be, when we present things like what's new in the product. We're going to make sure that people get the kudos that they deserve. So that's all the time we had. 33 seconds left. You might sit here with a lot of questions. I am absolutely available to answer any of the questions you might have. You can reach me on Yammer, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I think my email is also somewhere in the app. So just feel free to reach out to me and let me know if you want to be part of this pilot, or if you have any other suggestions, questions, and then let's take the discussion from there. So unfortunately, we don't have time for any Q&A, but I want to thank you very much for listening.